So I'm saying, guys, I'm telling you right now, keep your eyes on Xinjiang, because that shit may just explode one day. Where did they get those uniforms? They got them from Turkey. That's what they want to do. Cause a jihad in Xinjiang. NATO would love it, because that would mean China getting drained of manpower. That would mean China being bogged down in its westernmost region. That would mean China being drained of manpower, because soldiers would have to be sent into Xinjiang. That would mean China being occupied with the conflict, and that would mean an opportunity for China's far eastern neighbors, Japan especially. Let's not forget, Japan invaded China back in the 1930s and killed millions of Chinese people, and the Japanese don't say shit about that either. They love to deny it. Oh, yes, they do. The new Syrian government recruits foreign fighters to naturalize into the new army, including Uyghur fighters. Oof, I thought this was about the Syrian people. Why are Uyghurs being appointed into positions of the government? Why are Uyghurs being... Oh my God. What about the Syrian people? Where are the elections? I want to see an election in Syria. I want to see democracy. I want to see women with ink on their thumbs showing the world, I just vote for first time. That's what I want to see. I'm not getting that here. This is an invasion of Syria by Turco-Mongolians. It's a Mongolian invasion, everyone. But I thought this was about democracy. Nope. This is actually about the Great Mongol Khaganate, ran by the Sultan of Ankara. Turkey wants to lead the Turkic world. It's not just about controlling the Middle East, it's also about controlling the Turkic world. And where does most of the world's uranium come from? Most of the world's uranium comes from Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan has natural gas. It has uranium. If Turkey can control Central Asia, Turkey will be an empire. Do people realize how powerful Turkey can become if it takes control of the Turkic world? Very, very dangerous. And it will have an unlimited supply of uranium, which means it can make uranium bombs. It'll be unstoppable. So let's talk about Turkey's influence on the Uyghurs and how Turkey has been using the Uyghurs and still uses the Uyghurs as a proxy against its enemy, or uses them as a proxy, or used them as a proxy against Syria, but also how Turkey is planning on, let me rephrase, how Turkey is backing and training Uyghur fighters. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is to show that NATO is using the Uyghurs as a proxy. Why? To go against the Chinese. Now, NATO used the Uyghurs as a proxy to help with the toppling of Bashar al-Assad. Remember, Bashar al-Assad was an ally of China. So the main reason why, really the only reason why they overthrew Bashar was because he was an ally of both the Russians and the Chinese. So they got rid of a Russian-Chinese ally, Russo-Chinese ally. They used the Uyghurs. They trained them, and the Uyghurs have always been very good warriors. Historically, they were excellent fighters. The Uyghurs are the descendants of the Seljukian warriors who would actually invade Christian Greek Anatolia, and they took it over, and they mixed with the European populations in the areas that they took over, and they eventually produced what we today call Anatolian Turks. And these people aren't really Turks, they're just Europeans that got Turkified and they got Islamized. The Turks today, people who live in Anatolia, people who live in Turkey, they see themselves as Turks. They identify as Turks, and they see themselves as having a genetic relation with all the Turkic world. So there's a racial component in all of this. And Turkey dreams about creating a Turkic confederacy led by Ankara. So that's the reason why they want to use the Uyghurs. They want to use the Uyghurs, arm them, destabilize the Chinese, with the hopes of establishing an independent Islamic Uyghur state that would be cut off from Chinese power, Chinese control. And that Uyghur state would then join its Central Asian neighbors. And then Turkey could say, we did this, we got rid of we drove the Chinese out of Xinjiang, and with our help, the Uyghurs defeated these communists. look at how helpful Turkey has been to its Turkic brothers and sisters. And then by doing that, Turkey would present this image to the world that it is now leading the Turkic world, that it is now the leader of the Turkic world. And that would spark this desire to form a Turkic confederacy led by Ankara. This is really the goal here. So let's talk a little bit about the history of Turkey backing Uyghur separatism. Turkey has long been a supporter of Uyghur aspirations in Xinjiang, China's westernmost province, where most Uyghurs live. It has also historically been a major destination for Uyghurs fleeing Chinese rule during the Great Turkic Muslim Rebellion from 1864 to 1876 in Xinjiang against the Manchus, led by the Kokandi adventurer Yakub Beg. The Ottoman Sultan in Istanbul not only provided Beg's prospective stay in the Xinjiang city of Kashgar with weapons and military advisors, but also bestowed on him the title of Emir. So the Ottoman Empire back in the 1800s was supporting Uyghur separatism for the purpose of taking control of that region. The reason why empires arm insurgents is because they want to take over the territory that those insurgents are fighting in. That's why they do that, by the way. It has nothing to do with helping the insurgents. They want to use those insurgents, support their cause, and if the insurgents succeed, then the superpower or the regional power that helped those insurgents then has an opportunity to go into that region and say, okay, we're taking over. Thanks for your help. We're going to help you guys form a government, but we really are going to be the government. That's how it works. So it says here that in the 20th century, Turkey became a haven for Uyghur nationalists fleeing Xinjiang after it was peacefully liberated by the People's Liberation Army, the PLA, in 1949. So in the 40s, Turkey was backing Uyghur nationalism. Prominent among these was Isa Yusuf Alptekin, who became Tekin, that sounds like a video game, who became leader of the Uyghur diaspora throughout the Cold War. So this is now we're going into the Cold War and we're going to talk about how the Turks backed Uyghur separatism in the Cold War. And this was a part of the Cold War strategy to go against the Chinese, because a part of the main mission of the Cold War was to go against communism, and China definitely was and still is a communist country, although I would say that China is much more capitalistic now, much less communist than it was then, from what I understand. And the Americans, the NATO, Turkey was supporting the Uyghurs in the Cold War to go against the Chinese. Alptekin focused on a two-track approach to raise the profile of the Uyghur cause. First, he actively sought to cultivate links to Turkish political and military leaders with Pan-Turkist leanings, most notably Süleyman Demirel and Turgut Özal. Internationally, Alptekin attempted to enlist support for Uyghur nationalist claims through a broad appeal to anti-communist sentiments in the Muslim world, the non-aligned developing world, and Taiwan. But these efforts bore little fruit due to Beijing's limited ties with Turkey, its ideological offensives in the Third World, and its ability to paint Uyghur nationalists as aided and abetted by both Soviet revisionism and reactionary due to the links with NATO member Turkey. So it didn't work. It says here that the end of the Cold War and the creation of 5 independent Central Asian republics raised hopes among Uyghur and Turkic nationalists that this situation could be reversed. So it's sort of like what happened in the 90s with Yugoslavia. In the 90s, all these different countries that were under Serbia began to declare independence, and that led to a massive series of wars in the decade of the 90s. It started with, it started with Slovenia declaring independence. That led to a very quick 2-week war, and then Slovenia went off to have its independence, and then you had other Balkan countries declaring independence. So the Croatians, the Bosnians, the Croatians and the Bosnians, they wanted their independence. So there were wars in those areas between Serbs and the Balkan peoples who wanted to be independent of Serbian rule or Yugoslav rule. And then eventually you had the Albanians saying that they wanted to be free from Yugoslav control, and this led to the war in Kosovo, and this was the last conflict in the series of Balkan conflicts in the 1990s. And the Kosovars wanted that independence, and a lot of this was really sparked by the fall of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was kind of sort of friendly with Yugoslavia. It wasn't exactly a strong ally, but it was friendly with Yugoslavia. Soviet Union crashed. All these new countries began to form because they were no longer under Soviet control. And in the midst of all this, these Yugoslav countries also began to declare independence. So after the Soviet Union, these new Central Asian countries begin to form, and the Uyghurs in Xinjiang say, hey, we also want to be our own country. And the Chinese said, nope, not so fast. We're not going to allow that. The Uyghur diaspora in Turkey thus appear to have found a conducive environment in which to continue their lobbying efforts. Again, they were working in Turkey. Why is that? Because Turkey backs Uyghur nationalism, because Turkey wants to control Xinjiang. In an episode that underscored this, in 1995, Erdogan goes way back, guys. He goes way back to the 1990s. Kind of like Netanyahu. In 1995, Erdogan, then mayor of Istanbul, named a section of the Sultan Ahmet Blue Mosque Park in honor of Alp Tekin. So he named a section of the park after this Uyghur separatist. Why was that? Because Turkey's trying to show the Uyghurs, hey, we're with you. We named a section of this major park after one of your heroes. Follow us. We're with you. When officially opening the new section of the park, he declared, quote, Eastern Turkestan is not only the home of the Turkic peoples, but also the cradle of Turkic history, civilization, and culture. Again, the reason why we call Anatolia Turkey is because a long, long time ago in the medieval period, people called Seljuks, who came from Central Asia, invaded Iran. They went into Turkey, Anatolia, which was Greek Christian at that time, Hellenized Christian at the time, and they were conquered. The Seljuks conquered those Greek Christians, and they eventually took over Byzantium, and eventually they would take over the capital of the Byzantine Empire, which was Constantinople, in the year 1453. The Seljuks came into the Eastern Roman Empire. They took over large swaths of territory, and they mixed. They would eventually take over the Balkans, and they mixed. They mixed with the Europeans. That's why people in Turkey are white. They're not really Turks. Now, some of them do have Turkic blood in them because of the Seljukian invasions, but most of these people are just Europeans, but they identify as Turkish. It says here that the martyrs of, this is what Erdogan said back in 1995, the martyrs of Eastern Turkestan are our martyrs. So again, for decades, this Erdogan guy has been supporting Uyghur separatism. So it says here, Turkish Prime Minister Mesut Yilmaz issued a directive to his cabinet in February 1999 that Ankara would henceforth recognize Xinjiang as a part of China. So the Chinese were really getting pissed off at the Turks. Really getting pissed off, and they said, listen, Turkey, you're a major NATO country, and you are backing Uyghur nationalism, and we consider Uyghur nationalism to be terrorism, and we're not going to stand by that. We don't like that. And if you want to continue diplomatic ties with us, you are going to have to stop supporting the Uyghur separatists. So the Turks began to do some acts of diplomacy, and they said, okay, we recognize Xinjiang as a part of China. But again, this is all politics. They didn't really mean this. It was just a way to maintain diplomacy with the Chinese. And so it says here that government ministers, Turkish government ministers, according to Mr. Mesut Yilmaz, Turkish government ministers should refrain from attending meetings or even promoting Eastern Turkestan. So the Turks said, okay, we're not going to support Uyghur nationalism. But again, this was all political. In the wake of 9/11, China has made, this is an old-ass article, in the wake of 9/11, China made concerted efforts to portray unrest and violence in Xinjiang as aided and abetted by East Turkestan terrorist forces. And they're right, they were terrorists, and they are still Uyghur terrorists. In its bilateral relations with Turkey since 9/11, Beijing has also repeatedly emphasized the need for both parties to combat the three evil forces of separatism, terrorism, and extremism, and East Turkestan terrorism in particular. Some Chinese observers went further than the official statement, suggesting that Turkey's harboring of East Turkestan forces was analogous to the Taliban's harboring of Osama bin Laden. And they were right. They were absolutely right about this, guys. Turkey does support Uyghur terrorism, and they've been doing it for decades. To dispel such perceptions, Ankara acceded to Beijing's exhortations and cooperated with China on monitoring the activities of East Turkestan forces in Turkey for most of the 2000s, although, in contrast to many Central Asian states, it did not extradite Uyghurs to China. So the Turks, again, they were playing a game. They said, yeah, we will recognize Xinjiang as a part of China. Yes. We're not going to call Xinjiang East Turkestan or anything like that. But they were refusing to hand over Uyghur terrorists to the Chinese. So they were still supporting Uyghur terrorism. Now that's segue to this interesting article here. Let's first go to this one. This is from January of 2023. 100 Uyghur militants from Syria's Idlib undergoing training in Turkey. Gypsy Bird, I appreciate that. You said, I'm so enjoying another insightful, remarkable historical review. I really appreciate that. I really do try to inform people on what's happening in the world or in parts of the world. So it says here, 100 Uyghur militants from Syria's Idlib undergoing training in Turkey. So they've been training these Uyghur terrorists. And it says here, on Tuesday, a group of this is from 2023, so keep that in mind. So it says here that a group of militants of the Turkestan Islamic Party, TIP, accessed Turkey from Idlib, northwest Syria, following coordination with Turkish intelligence to receive military training in a camp there. A source in Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, which is now running Syria under the superintendence of NATO, Military Affairs said, under coordination with the Turkish intelligence, the Turkestan Islamic Party has been training a number of its militants on Turkish territory for almost 6 months. So it's a fact. They have been training these Uyghurs. Now, why are they training the Uyghurs? Now, to a certain point, it's to train these Turkic people to fight against the Assad government. That's partially what the reason was, and they did help to topple Bashar al-Assad and to overthrow him. That is a fact. But remember what the Uyghurs have said. These Uyghur terrorists have said. They said, now that Assad is gone, our next goal is to go back to China, and they want to fight the Chinese government. And if they manage to get to Xinjiang and start doing a jihad or start doing their conspiracy to spark a jihad, they will be recruiting Uyghur terrorists. People from other Muslim countries would enter there somehow. They'll be smuggled in somehow to join in on the jihad. And they actually could start to destabilize Western China, and Xinjiang could become another Syria. I think this is a likelihood, and I think this is why we should be looking at Xinjiang for the future. And so it says here, this is a translation, so it's not going to be perfect. The news sent batch to Turkey included about 100 militants, according to the source. However, the source did not elaborate about the reason for launching the training and the reason. We all know what the reason was. It was to fight against the Syrian military. But ultimately, this is about going against the Chinese, creating an independent Turkic state in Central Asia, so that the Turks could say, look at what we did. We defeated the Chinese. We helped the Uyghurs defeat the Chinese. We are going to run the Turkic world. And Turkey hopes that by doing such an operation, they could then form a Turkic confederacy and lead that confederacy. They could inspire the creation of a Turkic confederacy. It went further, adding that the Turkestan Islamic Party sent another batch of about 80 Uyghur militants 2 months ago, but it has not returned yet. The Turkestan Islamic Party has very close ties with Turkey. I wonder why. This is all about Pan-Turkism, since its militants are originally Turkmen, and it is an armed Uyghur Salafist jihadist group that recruits only Turkmen in its ranks. And the Turkmen are a Turkic people who live in Iraq, and they also live in Syria, and there's a lot of them. There's maybe over 100,000 of them, maybe even more, maybe hundreds of thousands of them. I don't know the exact number of the Turkmen population in Iraq and Syria, but the Turks do work with them. And again, they work with Turkmen in Iraq and Syria in the name of uniting all the Turkic world. And they want to lead the Turkic world. They want to create a Turkic confederacy, which would be led by Ankara. That's why they're recruiting the Turkmen in Iraq and Syria. That's why they were recruiting the Xinjiang Uyghur Turks. That's why they have aspirations to, that's why they're already actually controlling Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan is another Turkic country. That's why they supported Azerbaijan's war against the Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh. This is all about creating a pan-Turkic empire led by Turkey. That's it. That is the reason. According to some very now again, this was written, just letting you guys know, this was written in 2016. It's an older article, and the only way that I was able to find this article was to find it on the Russian search engine Yandex. I could not find this article searching Google. If you search for Turkey supporting the Uyghurs in Google, you get almost nothing. I couldn't find anything, actually. But when I looked it up in the Russian search engine, Yandex, it was pretty easy to find information on Turkey supporting Uyghur separatism. So it says here that according to some very recent official Syrian sources, last April, more than 5,000 jihadists crossed the Turkish border into Idlib and Aleppo. Among them were an unidentified but still significant number of Uyghurs from the Xinjiang region of China. Technical and operational support for this new jihad was allegedly provided by Turkish intelligence services and special units of the Turkish armed forces called the Maroon Berets. So they have been providing military backing, military training for these jihadis, including Uyghur jihadis. And it says here that while some sources say there are 1,500 jihadists from Xinjiang, others record that at least 1,000 jihadist militants came from that part of China. So they have been, I'm going to say it, I think they've been backing thousands of these people, not just a few hundred or just 1,000. The organizational and training support for this operation was allegedly provided not only by Turkish forces, but also by Turkmen guerrillas who had already played an active role in the downing of a Sukhoi Su-24M fighter jet and the capture of its crew on the ground in November 2015. So the Uyghurs and the Turkmen and the Turks, they're all working together because it's a part of this ideology of Pan-Turkism. Turkey wants to lead the Turkic world. It's not just about controlling the Middle East, it's also about controlling the Turkic world. And where does most of the world's uranium come from? Most of the world's uranium comes from Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan has natural gas. It has uranium. So if Turkey can control Central Asia, Turkey will be an empire. Do people realize how powerful Turkey can become if it takes control of the Turkic world? Very, very dangerous. And it will have an unlimited supply of uranium, which means it can make uranium bombs. It'll have an unlimited supply of uranium to make uranium bombs. It'll be unstoppable. This is why I'm paying attention to Central Asia. This is why I'm paying attention to Xinjiang. Now, Xinjiang is the transition point between China and the rest of Central Asia. It's really still, I think Xinjiang is still a part of Central Asia. But it's not Han Chinese, it's Turkic, it's Uyghur. And the Uyghurs are oppressed in some ways by the communist government. I'm not saying it's like Nazi Germany, but they are being controlled by the Chinese, and the Uyghurs don't like that. They want to have their own independent state. So this is what? This is a cause. It's a cause that is presented as defiance against communist oppression. So there's a cause there. So the Xinjiang is really Turkey's way of sparking this aspiration for uniting the Turkic world. Because Kazakhstan is not under China, Uzbekistan is not under China, Kyrgyzstan is not under China, Tajikistan is not under China, Afghanistan is not under China. These Central Asian countries are not under China, but the Xinjiang is under China. Xinjiang region is under China, and it's Turkic. And there are many stories of Chinese communist oppression being imposed upon the Uyghurs. So there's a cause. There's not a cause with Kazakhstan or Uzbekistan, but there is a cause with Xinjiang. So right there, Xinjiang serves as an ideological foothold for the Turks. They have a cause by which to say, we must help our Turkish brethren against these non-Muslim / non-Turkic people, the Chinese, the Han Chinese. So then they can back an insurgency in Xinjiang under the pretext of fighting for justice and liberty for the Turkic people, and to create a state, a Turkic state, independent of communist despotism. And if they can spark that jihad, then jihadis from all around the Islamic world will enter Xinjiang to fight the Chinese. And the Chinese will be destabilized in the West. And if China gets destabilized in its westernmost region, then the Americans can say, okay, Japan, okay, South Korea, we've armed you, we've trained you. This is the chance. And there's going to be some kind of scenario that's going to pop up by which it will be said that there needs to be a war between China and its East Asian neighbors, Japan and South Korea. And I don't know who's going to fire the first shot. I don't know if it's going to be China. I don't know if it's going to be Japan. I don't know if it's going to be South Korea. But something is going to happen that's going to spark a war between the Chinese and the Japanese, and or the Chinese and the South Koreans and Japan on the other side. And the Americans will say, okay, we're going to back the Uyghurs in the West. We're going to back the Japanese and the South Koreans in the East. And there's going to be a pincer effect. I'm not saying this is going to happen 100%, but what I am saying is I do believe that this is the plan of NATO. It might fail, who knows, but I think this is the plan of NATO. Actually, Kazakhstan and Russia are both founding members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Okay, so I'm not disagreeing with you on that one, but what I will say is that they are Kazakhs who are jihadis. They are Kazakhs who are jihadis, and they don't like Russia. They don't want to be under a pro-Russia or a government that's friendly towards Russia. And Turkey will try to use that to their advantage if this Turkish aspiration goes far enough. It should be remembered that the Russian plane was shot down by the Turkish Air Force due to an alleged airspace violation. It is also necessary to remember that all political parties currently in power and opposition in Turkey support the activities of Turkmen jihadists in the Syrian region. Before the start of the war in Syria, Turkmen jihadists lived in the rural areas east of Aleppo. So the Turkmens are not Uyghurs, they are another Turkic people, but they live in Syria and Iraq, and they are being backed by the Turks. Supporters of the pro-Turkish Uyghur jihad today include the infamous Grey Wolves, and that's a Turkish Nazi group that was backed by the CIA back in the Cold War, who sent 35 aid convoys to the Turkmen Uyghur jihadist. So right here is another example. And the Grey Wolves were a proxy of the CIA during the Cold War, and now they're backing the Uyghurs because they want to go against the Chinese. The fleet of trucks they sent was heading to northern Syria 2 months ago. In fact, the leader of the Grey Wolves, Selami Aynur, was killed by forces loyal to Bashar al-Assad while he was operating with a Turkmen Uyghur battalion in Aleppo. The person who killed the Russian pilot of the Sukhoi 24M jet and the helicopter pilots who immediately went to the region to pick up the pilot was Alp Arslan Çelik, also a Turkish nationalist acting together with Turkmen jihadists. However, there is still a strong pillar of foreign financing for Turkmen Uyghur jihadists in Germany. Ooh, that's interesting. Moreover, 2 months ago, President Erdogan said Turkey protects all Muslims in the Balkans. So again, the Ottoman Empire used to control the Balkans. They want to control the Balkans. These words are a clear reference to the role that the Turkish leader has given to the Turkish and Turkmen community in Germany. This community is intended to be used as a base for collecting funds, support, hiding, and recruiting militants for the strategic link between the Balkan jihad that will soon openly erupt and the war in Syria. So they want to create a jihad in the Balkans, and that would be by working with the Albanians and possibly the Bosnians, the Muslim Bosnians. The new Syrian, this is a Chinese media website, by the way. The new Syrian government recruits foreign fighters to naturalize into the new army, including Uyghur fighters. Oof, I thought this was about the Syrian people. Why are Uyghurs being appointed into positions of the government? Why are Uyghurs being, oh my God. What about the Syrian people? Where are the elections? I want to see an election in Syria. I want to see democracy. I want to see women with ink on their thumbs showing the world, I just vote for first time. That's what I want to see. I'm not getting that here. Here is I'll give you a link. Here is Uyghurs. They're in the government. Mongolian Turco-Mongols. This is not the rise of Syrian democracy. This is an invasion of Syria by Turco-Mongolians. It's a Mongolian invasion, everyone. Jelani is Saudi. Might as well be at this point. Is Syria getting more diverse? Yeah, more diversity for Syria. Oh my gosh, dude. Here's a Mongolian. Genghis Khan is back. Mongolian invasion, first territory to fall to the new Mongolian Empire is Syria. I was about to say Serbia. That actually might come in the future. Who knows? New Syrian government recruits foreign fighters to naturalize into the new army, including Uyghur Khan, Uyghurs Khan, Mongol Genghis Khan. After the Syrian rebels overthrew Assad government, after the Syrian rebels overthrew the Assad government earlier this month, they are preparing to form a new government and form a new national armed force. Reuters reported that the new government excluded some radical foreign jihadist fighters. Right, we're not going to take in all the Islamists, but we're going to take some Turco-Mongolian fanatics. We like the Mongolian ones. But also recruited some foreign fighters to become officers of the new army, including Uyghurs. Because it's not about the rise of the Syrian people. This is about Turkish power, Turkic power. And this is about a Turkic takeover of the country. That's what you're witnessing here, everyone. This is Turkey calling the shots. That's why people say, oh, HTS is running Syria. HTS is only running Syria on paper. That's for the media. Oh, look, these Syrian rebels, they took over. The freedom fighters have won. Democracy is winning. The tyrant was toppled. Now here are your Mongolian masters. Bow down to Genghis Khan, the Golden Horde. Where's your American blend? We're going to get to the smoking, my friend. We got to get to all the news first. We got to get through business, and then we can party. Business first, and then party later. I thought this was about the Syrian people. Nah, it's about the Turkish people. It's about the Turkic people. But, I thought this was about democracy. Nope, this is actually about the great Mongol Khaganate, ran by the Sultan of Ankara. Reuters reported on the 30th that sources revealed that among the 50 personnel appointments announced by the Ministry of Defense of the new Syrian government, effectively led by Ahmed al-Shara, at least six officer positions were given to foreigners. This should represent the Syrian people. It should represent the Syrian people. This is the bullshit they were telling us for over a freaking decade. It's about the Syrian people. The Syrian people will decide. Why do they keep lying to people? I wish they could just tell it. Could they just tell us the truth? Could the Americans just tell the freaking truth for once? I said that the people in the Turkic and the Balkan world were kind of filled with barbarians. America is filled with liars. Barbarian liars. They're worse than barbarians. They're barbarian liars. Could we just get the truth from these damn people? Could they just say, listen, guys, this has shit all to do with the Syrian people. We're just saying that to make the whole thing look good for the cameras. The reality is, guys, we are here to help the Turkish invasion of that country. We're going to enable Turkey to invade it, so get with the program. Start addressing your Turkish masters as Sultan or Bey or Oghuz Khan or I don't know. What's a Turkic? Just start addressing your Turkish masters and just acquiesce to their demands. They're going to take over your country, and that's that. That's right. And you're going to have Mongolians ruling over you. Seljuks are going to rule over you, and they're going to do their little throat singing dances. You got to get used to it. Damn it! This has shit all to do with you guys or your freedom. If they want to cut some heads off, that's not our problem, because we are only here for one reason, and that is to make sure that the American dollar is supreme and not the Russians. We don't want the Russians in this damn area. Ain't that the damn truth? So yes, Syrian people. Yes, yeah. The Syrian revolution has nothing to do with with Syrian people. It's about power. That's all it is. So it's time that Syria face the reality that Syria is now under a Turco-Mongolian people with their Anatolian masters. The new government has given these foreign fighters, some of whom are jihadists, the opportunity to naturalize and join the Syrian. Oh, yeah, we're going to give you citizenship. Welcome to the new regime. HTS, led by Shara, was also part of the Al-Qaeda terrorist organization. Yep. All that bullshit about how Al-Qaeda was the big bad guy. Right down the toilet. These appointments may cause concern to the outside world. No shit. Oh, you see those blue My God. These are the Uyghurs. You're telling me these guys aren't being trained by NATO? Where did they get these uniforms? Like, oh well, you know, they're just Uyghurs. They're there to fight for the Muslim people. That's why they're there. Where did they get these uniforms? Where did they get them? Where did they get these big guns? I'm not a military expert, but I know a big gun when I see one. Those are some big ass guns. Where did they get those big ass guns? Where did they get those uniforms? That's what I want to know. They got them from Turkey. That's where they got them from. They're trained by Turkey. And they want to take this organized paramilitary organization and smuggle them into Xinjiang and cause a jihad. That's the goal. That's what they want to do. Cause a jihad in Xinjiang. NATO would love it because that would mean China getting drained of manpower. That would mean China being bogged down in its westernmost region. That would mean China being drained of manpower because soldiers would have to be sent into Xinjiang. That would mean China being occupied with the conflict. And that would mean an opportunity for China's Far Eastern neighbors. Japan especially. Let's not forget, Japan invaded China back in the 1930s and killed millions of Chinese people. And the Japanese don't say shit about that either. They love to deny it. Oh, yes, they do. The Seljuks had the same color. If you ever look at Seljukian pottery from the Middle Ages, they had the same light blue color. You see that light blue color? And they have demons in the art. We have a demon on the artwork. This is a griffin. Looks like a griffin. It's a demon. And they invaded Anatolia. And you can see more of that light blue color here. This is, by the way, the original Turk. You see the oriental features. They were basically Muslim Mongolians. Oh, wow. Look at this artwork, man. They had some elaborate artwork. Wow. They had some very sophisticated artwork, these people. Fascinating stuff. Look at that. Look at this. Why can't I get it close? Oh, there it is. Isn't that beautiful? That's beautiful. That looks like something you would see in India, like ancient Mughal artwork. That's fascinating. The East Turkestan movement of Uyghurs fighting for independence has been deemed a terrorist activity. Absolutely. They're terrorists. Sources in the Syrian military said... Okay, can you guys see this? Okay. Sources in the Syrian military said that of the 6 foreign officers appointed on Sunday, 3 were awarded the rank of brigadier general. So this guy's... You got 3 Uyghurs. They're already brigadier generals. Yeah, you're a general. Why general? Why such a high position? Because it's a Turco-Mongolian takeover. That's the reason why. And 3 were awarded the rank of colonel. Among them, Sahid, a Uyghur whose real name is Abdulaziz Dawood Khudaberdi, became a brigadier general. Why is a Mongolian being made a general? A brigadier general. Why is that? Because Zahid leads the Uyghur Turkestan Islamic Party. So the head of the Uyghur terrorist organization was given the position of brigadier general because he's the head of a Uyghur terrorist organization that's backed by Turkey. And it's this organization that Turkey wants to use to destabilize Western China in order to create an independent Turkic state so as to inspire the rest of the Turkic world to follow Turkey as the leader of the Turkic world. Okay. That's the strategy here. So, yeah. That's the strategy. So my guess is that they're going to send these Uyghur guys into Xinjiang, or they're going to attempt to do that. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Mao Ning said on Tuesday, the East Turkestan Islamic Movement, China's name for TIP, is a terrorist organization. listed by United Nations Security Council. The Beijing authorities have repeatedly stated that TIP seriously threatens China's national interest, and overseas security. Confronting TIP is China's core interest. So I'm saying, guys, I'm telling you right now, keep your eyes on Xinjiang, because that shit may just explode one day.